Over the last 25 years, I've had the privilege of interviewing and highlighting some truly interesting people. Everyone who is anyone, both the famous and the infamous, from presidents and their first ladies to kings and queens, movie stars and pop stars, captains of industry, heads of state, sports personalities, innovative entrepreneurs, and some pretty fascinating everyday people. Today, I'm proud to introduce you to Xin Tian, a lawyer and scientific researcher who is intent on making contributions that fill in the gaps between law and science. Xin, it's a pleasure to meet you, and let's get started. Sir, your career seems to be split between scientific research and work as an attorney. So, how did you build such an interesting and diverse career?
Yes, my interest on science and law came from my college experience. When I was a college student at China Pharmaceutical University, I did many animal experiments. I found that China and the United States had very different philosophies related to the animal experiment. China is pro-research that medical students can do as many experiments as possible. On the other hand, the United States is pro-rights. The lawmakers wanted to make sure that animals receive human treatment. So medical students had very limited opportunities to do those experiments. I wanted to do interdisciplinary studies to find answers to those difficult ethical questions on animal experiments. So after that, I further pursue a master in biology degree from NYU and a Juris Doctor degree from University of Minnesota. Yeah, that's where my interest came from.
So, I have a 16-year-old son who is passionate about math and science. Where did your passion for science originate?
Yes, that's a great question. My passion for science came from my graduate studies at NYU. My advisor is a chief scientist at NIH for 25 years. He introduced a lot of interesting math models to resolve real-world problems. His course elicited my interest on applied mathematics. From that point, I start to have critical thinking and scientific thinking. So that is where my passion came from.
Absolutely. So, I understand, sir, that you have actually secured several patents throughout your career. Tell us a little bit about some of the patents that you've secured.
Yes, I applied 2 patents on data security. My platform continuously monitor users' activity to prevent unauthorized access to sensible and important data. This year, a giant game company copied my idea and invent an anti-addiction platform that if the user is at a school area and during the school time, then the platform will disconnect users. There's an interesting thing in the patent field. Patent invalidation is an effective weapon to diminish the competitors' patent. I have an application with an earlier application data. So my application can invalidate competitors' patent on the basis that their patents doesn't have novelty. I have retained Asian top law firm for the anticipate patent invalidation claim.
Clearly, your legal background and a scientific background have been a perfect match for the kind of work that you enjoy doing. But in terms of your legal work, what would you say is your area of specialty?
I think my area of specialty is patent prosecution in China. That is, applicants and examiners have written communications regarding claim of patent rights. To better explain my work, I would like to quote a metaphor that patent rights is like a deed. On the east side, there is a hill. On the west side, there is a river. If the examiner thinks that my deed overlaps other people's deed, then the examiner will refuse the patent rights claims. I will then argue that my hill is not your hill, my river is not your river. If the examiner still thinks that there's some overlaps, I will have to amend claim of patent rights. So after these written communications, the patent office would grant patent rights. That is my area of interest. That is patent prosecution.
Wow. I mean, you've accomplished quite a lot. And Jen, I understand you're a first generation immigrant. So will you share with us some of the challenges you've actually faced?
Yes, I think the challenge is that I don't understand American culture very well. On many occasions, when I was at school, a professor told a joke. Well, all my classmates laughed at, but I don't understand what they laughed about.
Jen, I can tell you there are a lot of people that, even though they've grown up in the United States, don't understand a lot about American culture. So, welcome to the club, sir. Interesting you brought up Broadway because I understand you have some interest in the performing arts as well. Tell me about that.
Yes, my interest on performance arts led me to do the filmmaking work. In 2013, I directed a short film titled Lost in New York. The film talks about a Chinese girl pursue her ballet dream in the New York City. This short film received 2 awards of merit in California. In this film project, I exercise leadership. I actively search good script. I recruit cast and members. I found shooting equipment and locations. And also I have to work within the budget.
As I introduced you earlier, you talk about filling in the gaps between law and science. How do you accomplish this goal?
I think the relationship between science and law brings a challenge. The science industry extremely values creativity. On the other side, the laws tend to be stable for the purpose of maintaining social stability. So if the laws governs science sector, laws need to be flexible. I and other professors do comparative law research on European personal information protection laws, US House laws, and Chinese laws. I plan to fill the gaps between science and law by writing an academic book. The academic book would increase people's awareness on data ownership, the right to use data, and the privacy rights on personal information. The comparative law research would provide an insight that what would happen if there's no privacy laws at all. And the comparative law research can help us to resolve similar problems in different countries.
That sounds extremely ambitious, but I know with the kind of work you've been doing, this is a challenge that you can absolutely accomplish. Sir, before we go, what's the one thing you'd like the viewer of this video feature to walk away with today?
I would like to leave to our viewers, for one thing, that know something about rule of law and human rights. A rule of law helps us to understand how laws govern a country. If you look at the American Bar Association, the mission statement tells that hold government accountable, work for just laws, including human rights and fair legal procedure. From my experience, I think that if I found a law is problematic, the system might also have a problem. 2 years ago, I was hospitalized in a cancer hospital in China, and the doctor wrongfully diagnosed lymphoma and wrongfully used 3 kinds of specially regulated antibiotics. And it caused me acute kidney injury. Then I filed a lawsuit against the hospital. The court decides that I am at fault because I have disease. There is a deeper reason for this unfair judgment. Most of Chinese hospitals are state-owned enterprise, and the Chinese laws tend to protect hospitals' interests, even in the medical malpractice cases. After I experienced this case, I appreciate how good the U.S. legal system is and how well the U.S. government protects its citizens' human rights. So I think rule of law is very important to the society.
The rule of law and recognizing that the citizens are the foundation of society and therefore protecting our citizens should be priority number one. Thank you so very much. It's an honor to speak to a colleague who is doing such fascinating work. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of your questions.